Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to APAL's post-harvest seminar and tour. It is great to have so many of you join us online. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Justin Smith, and I'm the Industry Services and Export Manager at APAL. Today's jam-packed program provides you with a unique opportunity to tap into the insights of three major packhouse technology providers, Tomra Compact, Griefer, and MAF Oceania. We're excited to kick off with a virtual tour of Montague's new state-of-the-art facilities, which showcases the machines and technology in action. At the end of the tour, Rowan Little, General Manager for Montague, and Paul Ranson, Director Solutions Architecture from Tomra Compact, will be online to answer your questions. In addition, we have a great lineup of speakers. Dick Vanderkop, Export Manager for Griefer, Phil Alexander, Sales Director for MAF Oceania, and rejoining us, Paul Ranson from Tomra Compact. The speakers will explore what a smart packhouse looks like and the underlying drivers that are shaping quality management and consumer marketing opportunities for the apple and pear industry. At the end of the presentations, there will be plenty of time for you to have your burning questions answered. I encourage you to submit your questions and interact with us throughout. Today's event would not be possible without the support of our highly valued sponsors. It is my pleasure to acknowledge our various APAL post-harvest partners, Hort Innovation, Tomra Compact, and Campbell Chemicals. Thank you for your support in educating our industry and for assisting them in their journey to improve the quality of apples and pears. A few housekeeping items. We cannot hear or see you, and you cannot see each other. You can ask a question in writing at any time during the meeting. To ask a question, click on the Slido chat box next to our video screen. If you wish to view the video at full screen on your computer, you can log on to Slido via a web browser on your phone. The details are currently appearing at the bottom of your screen. If you didn't get all that information, we will have these details scrolling at the bottom of the screen throughout the Q&A session. You can vote by questions by clicking on the thumbs up icon. If we receive multiple questions of a similar nature, we will aggregate them to make it simpler to respond. Please submit your written questions as early as possible, and we will respond to them as soon as the Q&A sessions begin. Towards the end of today's program, we will invite you to answer a poll. This is really important for us so that we can continue to improve the delivery of these types of seminars to industry. If you have any technical issues, please call our webinar host on 0423 979 934. Now it's time to get underway. It is my pleasure to invite Phil Turnbull, CEO of APAL, to formally welcome you and provide you with a quick update. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Justin, and welcome to everyone across Australia and around the globe who has joined us today. I have to start by saying I'm extremely disappointed that we're not holding and enjoying today's event face-to-face. Like everyone, I was hoping that when the calendar ticked over to 2021, we would leave 2020 behind us and kick off with a post-harvest forum hosted at one of our industry's newest and most exciting production facilities. And of course, we could interact directly. Unfortunately, once again, COVID restrictions have conspired against us, but the APAL team has worked really hard to bring you this condensed version today. So we're about to enjoy a virtual tour of Montague's new facilities. Our great speaker lineup is prepped and ready to provide you with an exciting taster of the future the packhouse tech will look like. Appropriately in our work, we place a lot of focus on the importance of what happens in the orchard. But as you know, your fruit doesn't go to market without going through a packing facility. And it's these facilities where further value is either created or opportunities are lost. So our challenge to you today is, firstly, are you using your packhouse data to add value to your crop? And secondly, if not, are your post-orchard operations really creating value for your business? And finally, the obvious question is, what will you do about it? These are big questions, but if today's presentations demonstrate anything, it's a simple fact that value adding doesn't happen by accident. Smart management and timely planning will allow you to harness technology and data to add value to your harvest. Over the next couple of months, the APAL team are planning to make our way back out to the growing regions and reconnect with our members and catch up with everyone. Obviously, border restrictions will make this a little tricky and fluid, but we really look forward to seeing you in person. I'd like to offer a special thanks to Scott Montague, Rowan Little, and the team at Montague's for hosting us today, and also for sowing the seeds that have led to today's agenda. Congratulations on the completion of your new facility, and we look forward to taking a peek under the hood. On that note, I'll hand back to Justin to take us through today's content. Thank you all for joining, and I hope you enjoy the seminar.
Thank you, Phil. Before we take a virtual tour of Montague's new facilities, we want to play you a short video from our sponsor, Tomra Compact, who have been working with Montague's to deliver this project. Now let's take a tour of Montague's new retail space, the Orchard, and production facilities which open next week. In commencing this project, Montague we're focusing on a key few things: improving efficiencies, increasing capacity, improving environmental sustainability, and the ability to engage with consumers. Ron Little, General Manager for Montague, and Michael Russo, Grading Optimisation Manager with Montague, will walk us through the different areas of the facilities. Ron Little and Paul Ramson will answer your questions live at the end of the tour, so please have your questions ready. Please be aware that some sections are still being commissioned. We hope to join with you soon for a face-to-face tour of the facilities. Now let's take the tour.
Hi and welcome to Stella's Kitchen. This is our virtual tour of Montague, and Stella's Kitchen is a cafe that we have here at Montague, just opened. Seats exactly 70 people inside and 50 people on the deck outside, and it looks over our dam and our new production facility. Also down here in the orchard at Montague, we've got Bill's Orchard Gate, which is our retail shop where we sell local produce and some artisan special gourmet food products. So this is all part of Montague's drive to really get our consumers more invested in what it is to grow apples and stone fruit in the 21st century. So included in our offer here at the orchard is a pick your own orchard, which you can see in the background. And then we also have tours of our new production facility. So the new production facility, which you'll tour later in this segment, it's about 20,000 square metres in total, the whole building, including all of the cool rooms and the annex and the office. And in that, we've installed compact sorting equipment. We've got one commit to pack line primarily for stone fruit, and then a 50-lane pre-sorter. And we've invested in a ASRS, which houses about 3,000 bins in a 21-metre tower. So altogether in this facility, we have capacity to pack over 300 million apples every year. And we're packing them on 5 different pack lines. And all the movements within the building are all via a robot. So we've taken away a lot of forklift movements, and we've got a flow-through design that allows us to take fruit straight from the orchard all the way through the production facility and into storage with minimal movements. So that's the story that is about to unfold before you. So as we go on this journey through, enjoy the tour of Stella's Kitchen, Bill's Orchard Gate, and our new production facility here at Montague. Welcome to the Montague Production Centre here at Narre North. This is the entrance to our production facility. Before anyone enters into the building, we have our hand wash station here, and then we put on our PPE, and then we've got an automatic door to enter the building. So we're now in the production centre proper. So basically the production centre is set out so that the fruit enters from the far right-hand side. Fruit basically tracks through here. All the packaging material comes from the mezzanine. And then this is actually the end of the process where the packed pallets come off and then they go over into the cool rooms over there. So what we're going to do now is we'll just walk down and walk up into the mezzanine and get a view of the whole packing facility. Then we'll go and look at the ASRS and the room. We'll have a look at the pre-sort line and then have a look at the dispatch area. So we're now standing on the mezzanine in the new pack house, and this is a great way to view the overall process of our packing. So the fruit enters in via the blue doors to our right, and then basically the fruit goes into our pre-tip, and we have bin washing after the fruit's tipped. Then we have a 6-lane pre-sizer with 50 drops, and the fruit, once it's gone through the pre-size process, it gets picked up by a robot. We float the fruit into a bin, and then a trolley comes and picks it up and takes the fruit to the ASRS. And then also from up here you can see the framework for the movement of the fruit then from the ASRS to the actual packing lines.
So this is our apple pre-sizer that'll be functional in the next couple of months. We'll use this to separate the apples into sizes, grades and colours so that we can then put it into cartons at a later date. The Spectrum and the Inspectra from Compaq will be doing the grading for us to separate it out. The field bins go in, and the bins that come out are pre-sized, pre-graded so that we can put them into a box at a later date. We've got 50 flumes to separate out all the different grades, sizes, to then get the grower the best return possible. So we use the data that's collected from Compaq Spectrum and Inspectra 2 to identify any issues with the fruit, information that we can get back to the grower for them to do a better job at harvest or during growing, and identify the best outlet for the fruit to get the best returns for the grower.
So we're standing now in the middle of the Montague ASRS, which is an automatic stock retrieval system. In this room, we can store over 3,000 bins of apples, and the whole room is managed by, you can see at the end of the corridor, a yellow crane. So all the fruit is moved in and out automatically using that crane. So fruit enters in from the pre-size, gets put away by the crane, and then the crane picks it up according to the packing schedule for the day and delivers it to the packing lines. The big challenge with this particular room is certainly going to be the integration with the IT. So the plan here is for us to be able to put together our packing schedule for the day in the afternoon prior to packing. And then overnight, the robot will move the fruit into location and then take that fruit out to the packing lines in the order that the production schedule called for the day. So this room will all be refrigerated, kept at below 2 degrees. The room is about 21 metres tall, and so certainly way beyond the scope of a conventional forklift. So it was fantastic to be able to develop this, even though the cost capital to develop was very high. when we did the sums over a 20-year period, when you take the savings in refrigeration and the build cost, it did stack up. So this is our commit to pack line here at Montague. So basically directly below us is the compact spectrum sorting, defect sorting equipment. And then along below is the grading line. So we've got a 3-lane grader, and we've got automatic box fillers, which are the grey units at the end of the grader, and then packing lines. And the most interesting part of this process is the monorail, which is the carton delivery system. And we selected this because of the diversity of packaging material that we have for food. So basically this rotates and delivers the packing material to the correct lane, and the packers select the lane based upon what they're packing.
So we're here using the compact spectrum for our external defect sorting. We found it very good for picking up external defects, particularly things like russet and skin marking. We're doing stone fruit here at the moment, but it does work very similar for apples and pears. We just don't have that machine up and running at the moment. So the way it works is it uses multiple cameras on different spectrums to identify different defects, and then identifies the defect, the size of the defect, and then you teach it how to identify what defect it is so that it can categorize it and decide where to place the fruit as a class 1, class 2 or waste. So it's working really well. It also has the ability to use infrared to identify softness of fruit, cuts, holes, punctures and things like that, which is great. And it's very accurate, and we're finding it great to deal with. So I'm just going to show you how it identifies a defect that I've taught it. So this is identifying a defect on plums. This is russet skin marking on plums, and you can see as we rotate through, it identifies the defect as it's rotating under the cameras. You get a lot of different images there, and then it identifies the size of the defect, and then you can categorize it into what grade you want that defect in. So this screen shows us the percentage that's falling into that grade in premium, market and waste. And you can get live data or what you've done for the whole batch.
This is the final stage of the production process. This is our distribution area, and in here all of our packed stock that we pack during the day comes through our facility. So we've got rapid cool rooms, 2 rapid cool rooms that allow us to rapidly cool containers of fruit, 20 pallets at a time in about 4 hours down to below 1 degree. We've also got about 1,500 pallet spaces of storage, and then 4 rear loading docks. And the whole distribution area is actually a refrigerated area as well. So we can store excess to our pallet spaces in the annex of the distribution centre. So that concludes our tour, I guess. Thanks for taking the time. We look forward to welcoming you to our site in person in the near future.
I would now like to invite Rowan Little and Paul Ramson to join me on screen. Before I commence asking questions, I would like to remind you to add your questions in the chat box next to this video or through the Slido website. Now let's kick off. Welcome, gentlemen. Rowan, if I can start with you. Someone's asked the question, what were the key drivers for Montague's in making this decision to make such a significant investment?
Oh, look, we hadn't made an investment in packing, I guess, really a big one in terms of a new shed. So our old shed, the last development we did was in the 1980s. And I guess we looked at trying to renovate that shed again. But then when we looked at the volume of fruit we wanted to process, and we also looked at just what we'd need to do to try and renovate a shed, it became pretty clear to us that really a greenfield site was the right answer. And then from there, it really became a matter of, well, what's the flow that you want to create? And so, look, our goal ultimately was both to pick the most efficient equipment, but also to deliver a process that takes fruit from the orchard to a finished product in the most efficient way. So that was really the driver.
Fantastic. And just an extension, I guess, in terms of making decisions around what technology to go with, did the local retailer chains play a role in influencing that through their quality requirements?
Oh, look, definitely. I mean, we went through a very thorough process in terms of selecting the right partner. And what I would say is that all the partners presented a really good offer. So it's really about customizing that. But at the end of the day, data for us was a critical component, and how we selected how we could use the data that we created from the packing, because the retailers are increasingly demanding about traceability and about big data sets and about the ability to really talk about how your product is performing, what the quality is like. And so I wouldn't say that was the primary consideration, but it certainly was something that we did take into consideration.
Fantastic. Paul, a question for you from Kevin Dodds in New South Wales. Can the Spectrum be taught to identify and classify common pest and disease damage types, i.e. codling moth, dimpling bug or black spot?
So towards which specific defects, etc., you can differentiate between, I'm not as technical as I'd like to be on apples, but Spectrum's smart mapping technology is achieving exactly that. It is teaching and training the defects and blemishes that you've seen and categorizing them against particular physiology or pest-based or defect-based aspects of your apple. So identifying a mark, if it's differentiable from another mark by particular qualities of the blemish, you absolutely can categorize it.
All right. And look, another question for you, Paul, and perhaps might have been asked before we got to this part of the video, but is pre-sizing also installed by Compaq? And if so, is it water pre-sizing? And what would the other options have been if it wasn't water?
So the Montague's facility that we just toured through is a water pre-size line. It is a turnkey offering. It is being conducted as a best-of-breed installation, which for Tomra Compaq, we integrate with world-leading suppliers and vendors in other markets. And so, yes, this is a water pre-size supplied to Montague's in conjunction with Compaq. And other options, there's dry filling options. There's a lot of different filling and pre-sizing methods, but for apples, water pre-size has been the preference in Australia.
Fantastic. Rowan, back to you. And this is probably not a surprising question from other growers that might push their fruit through your facility in the future, but what is the intention around sharing data, to what level perhaps? And the main part of the question is, how quickly will they get that so that they can understand how their fruit's performing?
Yeah, look, I mean, that was definitely one of our drivers that we heard loud and clear from both our own orchard operators and external growers that we pack for. And look, our goal is to absolutely deliver data in real time, is where we'd like to get to. We're investing a little bit now in an app that we're looking at, so that we can get all of our, not only the data that we get direct from the grader, but also our quality, our QC assessments, that they're all visible by the grower in real time. And so we will develop quite a package, and that's another important consideration for us, because we want to be able to make sure that the grower can respond to, particularly when they're harvesting, to the results of the packing and make changes in their harvest practice if necessary.
Great. Ryan, also with you, how will this new facility or have any considerations been made in this new facility for how it will work to work into export markets like the UK and specific MRL requirements?
Yeah, look, that's another really good question. I mean, we were really, one of our biggest frustrations with the work that we did with export was our old system. So our old warehouse facility, we could pack the fruit, but it was the piece after packing, the pallet erection, the cooling, and the container loading that was taking us an eternity. So the chief design that we changed was traceability, because that was critically important for the offshore, but also, as I mentioned in the video, our ability to take the fruit straight from the line, cool it, in a relatively short amount of time and load a container the next day was a critical consideration. And certainly our goal is to speed up the I guess the point from packing to distribution into a container was a critical consideration.
Fantastic. Also with you, if in considering, I guess, a greenfield site, and perhaps this is coming from a grower who might be considering retrofitting, what are the key things that you would consider Montagues would have missed out on if you'd retrofitted your existing facility? What are the big
Right, so
gains?
it's all about the quality of your existing building. So our building, our old building, and those of you who haven't been here, was basically, it was a 1960s building that we'd added on to over years and years. We'd added here, there and everywhere. And it really, the main consideration we had was the builder said to us, you would have to bring this whole old building up to current building specs. And that was going to cost us a fortune. So I guess if I were looking at it again, if I had a really good building, so if my base build was a nice square building and had a good flow, then that would be a consideration why you would retrofit. But if you're like a lot of Australian pack houses like we were, and you've got a series of all little pokey sheds, that's where that was the critical turning point. I remember walking with the builder around our site, because our first plan was definitely to retrofit. And he started grunting early in the tour, and by the end he was perspiring quite heavily about the thought of retrofitting it. So, yeah.
Excellent. In terms of the ASRS tower, how is that restocked with bins of pre-sized fruit?
Yeah, so look, it's really hard from the video to show that, but basically there is a trolley. So all of the fruit is put into a pre-sized bin. And then a trolley, the fruit ends up on it's raised about 2 meters in the air, and a trolley picks it up and takes it into the ASRS. So we can take 2 bins at a time into the ASRS, and then the trolley on the return trip brings 2 full bins and delivers that to the packing line, and then comes and gets more bins from the pre-size. So we did a lot of work in modelling. In fact, we got a company in called 360. Who did a lot of work on the modelling of our capacity and trolley movements in order to make sure our I guess, delivery of pre-sized bins into the ASRS and then pack stock out of the ASRS, whether we had the capability to do that, and the numbers stacked up. So,
fantastic. Another question just popped up about that. Someone would love you to share a video of that in full operation, perhaps when it's finished. So I'm sure us at APAL, if you guys are open, we'd be very comfortable in coming out and doing that.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. So,
another question: how long would it typically take from harvest on farm to cooling at the facility?
Right. So we own, as you know, we own 5 orchards, 4 apple orchards. Like typically we have storage on all but one of those. So we would typically take the field heat out of the fruit and the orchard and then bring it to our CA facility down at Narre North. And look, that was the other consideration that we had in moving and going to a greenfield site. It means that a lot of our old cool rooms that we were using for packed stock, we can now retrofit and turn them into cool rooms. So we'll end up having storage for around, I would think, closer to 50,000 bins here. And that facility is probably about 200 metres from the pre-size line. So there'll be we've got an airport trolley that we bring the bins across from that facility to here.
Fantastic. And Rowan, if growers do provide fruit to you guys to store and pack, do you pre-size before storing, or will you pre-size afterwards?
No, so we talked a lot about this. One of the considerations was, do we take all, like, you know, the conventional wisdom is you take store stock that's poor quality. But actually our experience has been there's 2 things. One is you want to get fruit into CA as quickly as you possibly can. So you want to smart press it and get it into CA. And the other big consideration for us has actually been the demand for juice fruit. So demand and price for juice fruit late in the season is like everyone knows, it goes up dramatically. So actually having that juice fruit there we felt that the increased value for juice fruit you get through later in the year justified storing some fruit.
Okay. Back to data. I guess one of the questions was about sharing with your growers, but in terms of sharing data with retailers and consumers, is there any view that this would be something you'd look at?
Oh, look, I think data is like, everyone wants to talk about data. And we've got such a massive set of data that's available. I think one of the things we've found, we've only been open down in our retail space for a week, but people are fascinated with just the whole process of how you grow apples. And we're going to start doing tours of our production site in March. And we're already taking pre-bookings because people are so disconnected to how the fruit actually gets there. So, look, I hadn't thought about like making, data sets available to consumers or retailers, but it's certainly something that I guess we think data is power, and I think that to help people to understand better the process, that would be useful. I guess we just have to look and see how they wanted to use that data. What was the purpose of obtaining it?
Yeah, exactly. Another simple one, what palletizing technology are you using for the different pack types?
Yeah, so Paul mentioned the partnership. So Compaq have brought into the partnership here with a company out of the Netherlands called Berg, and Berg are providing all the palletization. So it's all Berg equipment from the Netherlands. And look, we spent a lot of time designing that. I guess our ability using the palletization is to actually bring pallets from outside the production process so that we can actually palletize, other pallets using the same equipment without actually packing it from the start. So it's quite again, when people come and look at that site, we'll show you through how we can use that palletization to, prepare stuff for export, even in our stone fruit line, which isn't attached to a palletization because it's a commit to pack, but we can still use the palletization scheme to put corner posts on and put the strapping and prepare it for export.
Okay, last sort of technical question. How long should water pre-sized apples be kept in the cold room? Is there any time restriction to move apples to packing after water pre-sizing for freshness?
So again, that's a really good question, one that we had a lot of questions about. I guess we probably spoke to a lot of people, mainly in Italy and South Tyrol, just about that. And so, look, they were sort of saying they would keep it comfortably up to 3 weeks. Our desire is to turn stuff around in 10 days. We don't really believe that we want to have anything in pre-size, more than 10 days. But look, there'd be operators 9 Mile or Plunkets or whatever who'd know a little bit. That's our desire. Whether that's reality is a different question. I think the other question that we're sort of wrestling with is there'll be certain lines of fruit that we won't want to put in the ASRS because it's very slow moving. So, if you've got a B grade or something that you don't have much demand for, we've got the capacity to take that out and actually put that in a different area, knowing that we probably won't process that fast enough. So the real desire of the ASRS is to turn things over really quickly.
Okay, cool. Paul, another question, I guess, on the detection side of things within the system. Can internal browning be accurately determined?
Sorry, can internal browning be accurately detected?
Determined through the monitoring, yeah.
Yeah, so on the Montague's line here, we have Inspectra 2. It's an NIR spectrometer type technology, same as available to the industry, and it's pretty successful at detecting internal browning and internal browning defects. Like all the spectroscopy type systems are based on the models and the modelling being accurate, and the more accuracy and the more data you have in your model, the higher the accuracy point. The Inspectra 2 system has had a lot of work done in the user interface and the ease of use to really improve that modelling process and make it really simple to follow, transferable across the lanes so that you have to do less modelling and can work with less fruit and destroy less fruit, whilst making it as accurate and following the seasonal trend and the current state of the fruit as it comes out of storage.
Okay, fantastic. Last question, and look, thank you everyone for all your questions. You've really sent them through quickly, which has been great. Rowan, the final question is, how will the packhouse labour change in terms of both skills and numbers?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, we're going to add staff to our packing process, but the way we judge our packhouse performance is on number of kilos per person per hour. And effectively, based upon our modelling that we did, we're going to get twice as much fruit per person per hour. And that was the critical consideration in our whole build. In our old facility, we had more fruit than grading capacity. So that it was the capacity was the issue. So we're really comfortable and looking at the stone fruit grading that we've done so far. So we commissioned the stone fruit line in late December. And so far, the modelling that we did on stone fruit is actually a little bit ahead of schedule. We're probably 2 weeks better than what we thought in terms of kilos per person per hour, which is great. So yeah, that was the big consideration. In terms of the actual mix of who the staff are, we certainly still do have unskilled workers, and they're still the majority of our staff. However, in the new build, we've definitely got more IT and more engineering requirements. So we have got a greater demand for more skilled workers. And we, I guess with the robotics and everything, we fully expect that will change the face of a little bit of our workforce in the packhouse, which we're really enthusiastic about getting new staff with new skills into the business.
Fantastic. I told a lie, Rowan. One more question. The opening date for the full facility, when are you hoping to be fully commissioned and up and running?
Yeah, look, at the moment, we're really earmarking to be up and operational with all the hardware by the 14th of March, actually. And then the software is the big one. That's the big unknown. But at this point, we're looking probably the end of April, early May for the software to be interface, and we're talking about a bit of a grand opening sort of during April, and then probably we'll do an opening for growers and an open day or something in May, at the end of May, when everyone's finished their harvest, so everyone can come and have a good look.
Fantastic. Rowan and Paul, thank you so much for your time and for joining us online today. If you have any further questions, Paul in particular, Paul will be joining the panel discussion later. I would now like to introduce the first of our three speakers who will present on what a smart packhouse looks like. Dick van der Kop has been working at Griefer for more than 35 years. Griefer is a world market leader in sorting technology for fruits and vegetables worldwide. For the past 20 years, Dick has been the export manager of sales in the Middle East, Asia, Oceania, and South Africa. Dick, I now hand over to you.
My name is Dick van der Kop. I'm working for Griefer as an export manager. I'm responsible for the sales in Australia and New Zealand. APAL asked me to give a presentation about how a smart packhouse will look like. As Griefer, we think that in about 5 till 10 years, the packhouses will look totally different than it is now. So, and that's mostly because of the labor cost is increasing, the availability of labor is difficult. It's not only in Australia and New Zealand, you see it worldwide, even in Asia. Labor is a big problem. So we have to automate more the packhouses. Also, hygienic is an issue. It's more and more a problem in what you see in the packhouses. The movements in the packhouse, there's a lot of movements now. So we think in future there will be no forklifts. They will work with shuttles. There will be an automatic warehouse where everything is fully automatically bins in, bins out. You know exactly the stock, what's in the packhouse. Also the measurement systems. The measurement systems will also need to be more advanced, in particular on internal and external quality. You see already in Australia that the retailers are asking for internal quality. And there are much more issues that the packhouses will change in the future. Grifa, you have to understand, Grifa is always busy with the developing of new products, new technologies. We're looking for labor saving. We're looking for automatization. We're looking for all kinds of things to improve the pack house. So these are one of the points. So first I want to tell you a little bit more about the hygienic sorting machine. The hygienic machine is more to prevent and build for building up bacteria, fungi, and dirt. There are coming more and more restrictions also from the retailers about these issues. So what we did, we developed a new type of machine that's more easy to clean with water and added some detergent. We make the machine also more suitable that the dirt is releasing more easy, and that we can collect all this dirt on central positions, collecting points. And we make also an open construction of the machine, so you can see also when the machine is too dirty, so you can clean it when it's necessary. Also, we try to we make the machine as much as possible from stainless steel, and also the chains we make from stainless steel and or from plastic to avoid lubrication. Also brushes. We not use brushes in the machine. Brushes is a point where bacteria can be get more and more. And we use as much as possible stainless steel, so you can clean it very easy with water, with high pressure steam cleaner or something like that. So overall, it's a more easier machine to clean. Some examples: you can lift up the camera box. Yeah, the camera box is mostly a position where it's difficult to clean, difficult to reach. When you can lift it up, it's more easy to clean inside. We can also do like this. On the other side, we put on several places. We put spraying nozzles for clean on high pressure, so we can clean the machine more easily with water or what else. Next point, what I want to discuss is what I want to explain is the IQS system. The IQS system is a measurement system for external quality, and that's for apples, for pears, and all kinds of fruits. And the benefits of external quality system is a constant quality of the fruits, of the final products. It also saves labor costs. So the machine select already automatically the fruits in different qualities, in class 1, 1.2, 1.8, 2, 2.3. What else you want to adjust the machine? On this way, the packer not need to think about, hey, is this a class 1? Is this a class 3? Where I have to put it? So the pack capacity of the packer will increase enormously because they not need to think about it. The retailers ask always for a particular quality, and when you do it with people on the packing belts, it's the one person think in a different way on a quality than another person. So when you do it with a machine, it's always the same and it always look the same. So the final product, the packing performance is much higher than you do it manually. And it is also the objective assessment and payment of the growers. When pack houses sort for different growers, the quality measurement for every grower is the same. We have different quality systems. So we have a performance, IQS performance, that's the basic system. And we have the performance plus. Later on, I will explain you a little bit more about the difference between these two systems. But it's a modular system. So when you start with performance, IQS performance, you can later update this to performance plus. The system is based on color and infrared cameras. the system make, as you can see underneath, you can see it make high resolutions images, and with particular cameras we can even see a little bit underneath the skin. It's, as I already tell you, it's consistency, so it's always the same. Distinguish of different defects. So we can select also, and we on different defects, on hail, on russet, on stem crack. So we can separate and we can adjust every defect in different classes. So when you want to have a little bit russet in the class 1, that's possible because we detect it is russet. So it is, for example, you can put it in the class 1. So we can say, okay, put it in the class 1. It's non-destructive, so it is 100% food safe. What is the advantage of Performance Plus? With Performance Plus, we will look with more cameras to the fruit. So, and that way we can say with particular color difference, we can say we can detect more defects. And later on, I will show you some photos where you can see it very carefully, very clear. With these extra cameras, we can perfectly see, for example, hail, bruises, fresh punctures, and some fresh damages on to the skin. For pears, it's more for kirking, punctures, and bruisings. So here you see the difference between iQuest Performance. It's a standard. I can say you can see 95% of all the defects you can see with this system, with these six cameras. But some defects, like fresh bruisings, stem punch, fresh stem crack, you can see better with Performance Plus. We need these extra cameras to see this more clear. Another thing is what we improve is the lighting of the camera box. Now we do it with the LED. Now LED have a big advantage. You not get light reflex, and you not get disturbing from other lights, and you not get a shadow. Another advantage is it's not heating, energy saving, and the lifetime of a LED light is much longer than a halogen light. Some examples of defects. Here you see a fresh puncture. We can see better because the color difference is difficult, because when you have a fresh stem punch, the color difference with the skin, where you have a green, green apple, yeah, the color difference is not that much. When you have extra cameras, we can see it is a fresh puncture 100%. So you can see it on the picture. You can see it really clearly. All punctures, that's very easy. Stem crack is the same, yeah. For stem crack, you have also to do, you have the crack and you have the stem. In the beginning with iQuest Performance, it is to see to see that you have a crack in the apple, but when you have an extra cameras, you see the difference between the crack and the stem. You can see here the crack is dark, the stem is light. So we say, okay, the stem is not a crack. So this is the crack. So it's more accurate. We can do russeting, skin marks, decay, bruisings, fresh bruisings, light bruisings, hail, very easy to see, sunburn, bitter pit. Even the bitter pit is just under the skin, and you see it not from outside. Even you can see that it is bitter pit just under the skin. For pears, we can see also the same fresh bruising, steps, fresh punctures, greening, yeah, the green colors on the pear, corking, Also the same, just under the skin, we can see it. We can see slightly under the skin. Russet, decay, scrap, frost damage, we can all detect. And all these defects, we can make a calculation and we say, okay, with these defects is a class 1, with these defects is a class 2, or particular percentage of particular defects we can send to another class. So with the program, you make a decision what class it is. And even you can do it in class 1, 1.1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So you can, it's not like class 1, class 2, class 3. No, you can do it also in, when you want to have a super class, you can say, okay, from 1 till 1.5 is class 1, from 1.5 till 2.5 is class 2. So you can make a really super quality of fruits packaging. I have more limb rub, sunburn, hail, everything is possible. Here you can see the different cameras. Yeah. So this is performance, and this is performance plus. So with different cameras, we see the fruits, the pear or the apple, in different wavelengths. Then internal quality. Internal quality is also an issue in Australia. The retailers ask the pack houses to use internal quality. They want to have an internal quality check for the fruits before they sell it. Our internal quality is a little bit works a little bit different than our competitors. We analyze it when the fruits is in the cup, in the carrier. You see here a hole in the cup. What we do is, here is a light source on the top of the cup, of the apple and the cup. Light source is shining on the apple. The light is coming through the apple. Underneath the cup is a sensor, and the distance between the sensor in the apple or the fruit is always the same. So when you have a small fruit or a big fruit, the distance is always the same. This is have a big advance, so it's more accurate than reflection. Reflection is I will tell you later. Reflection you have to do with different sizes, and the distance to the fruit is every time different. So here you see light source, apple, and then we have transmission, and from this we make a spectrum, and the spectrum we can analyze, and we can see internal browning, water core, and sugar level, bricks, and for pears, internal browning. Most of the customers where we sell this to is using it for internal browning. Only for some mango growers use also the bricks level. So here we have a video of it, so to make it more clear. So here you have this light source. Here's the apple in the cup. Here we have the sensor, and also the sensor is moving a little bit with the fruit. So this sensor is moving a little bit in the direction of the transport of the fruit. We can make much more measurements, and we have more information of the fruit itself. The next one, I think that's the most important one, and that is automatic packing. Labor cost is really a problem. It's not only in Australia, it's all over the world. So as we already started with this unit many years ago, then we stop with it, and later on we start again because we see the market need it. So what we do with the smart packer, we do it with 2 robots. We pick up the fruits and put it from the machine into the tray without any human who touched the apple. So with this unit, we can do up to, it's depending how much units you will invest in, but up to 7,000 fruits an hour. It's fruit friendly. Yeah, you will not damage the fruit. The sizes of the fruit is around 60 till 100 millimeters. It is in consistent packaging. it's even when you we did a test and we check, hey, what is the performance of this unit? We do it manually and we do it with the robot, and you see the performance of the robot, it's much higher than you do it manually. The other big advantage of this is when you do pre-sort your fruit and you put it back in the store, and after a week or 2 weeks you want to pack it, you never know the quality of the fruit. What we also do before we pack it, we do a final automated quality check. So we are 100% sure that the apples who are packed are 100%. When the fruit, we do it also with the IQS system, external quality system. It's also integrated in this unit. When the quality of the apple is not correct, the robot will not pick up the apple, and we continue, and we will be collected in a bin again. We also see the automatic check of the tray, so we know exactly what kind of tray there is coming. It can be a 28 or a 30 or a 32. We check with cameras what kind of tray it is, and we know exactly also if the tray is full or not. So on the end, the tray will be 100% full because we check if every position is full. If it is not full, we put another apple in that position. With this unit, you can save around 60 till 70% on the labor costs. You only need people who put the tray into the box, and for the rest, and you need one guy to feed the trays, but that's also something in the future what we are developing now. So tray dispensers and tray inserters. So that's the next step. Some key specs of the smart packer. So we have a robot arm. It can turn 180 degree. Yeah, we do the orientation stem calyx. So we position stem calyx and we position the color up, so blush up. For the trays, you can use polypropylene or paper trays. Packaging in separate trays or in open top box. We prefer on trays. Recognizes different trays and tray types. What I already tell you, we see with lasers which gap you can see a red spot. We check if the holes are filled with the fruits. Maximum size of the box tray is 40-60. That's the standard maximum standard size what we until now see in the market. You can also work with trays A and B types. So we can mix also the trays to the person who will put the trays into the box. Of course, we can add an inline labeling units to give a sticker to every apple. The infeed of the apples to the pack robot. So we separate the fruits in line to the robot. We separate on a pitch. After that, we do the automatic quality system. We check where is the stem, where is the calyx, where is the blush. So we orientate the fruit in line in the correct position. We check with cameras the positions of the holes of the trays. So the robot knows exactly all the information. He pick up the apple, put it in the right position on the tray. So fruits are coming, robots pick it up and put it in position in the tray. Another thing is we install, it's not new for us. We already installed several projects with this unit in Europe. And we will install the coming weeks 8 of these units in Australia. I hope you will understand how the system works. And when you have any questions about any technology of Grifa, any technology what I explain you over here, also about designs of pack houses, or any information you need, you can always contact me. I think APAL will have my name and contact information. So let's see. Hope we can see each other in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. And just a reminder that we'll be holding questions until the panel discussion, which Dick will be a part of at the end of all speaker videos. I would now like to introduce Phil Alexander, Sales Director for MAF Oceania, part of the global MAF Roda Agrobotic Group. Phil is a post-harvest specialist with over 30 years in fruit handling and packhouse systems. Phil and the MAF team have been responsible for some of the most innovative packhouses in Australia, some big and some small. However, all are focused on early adoption of new technologies and modern design concepts to improve efficiency and reduce costs. Phil, I now hand over to you.
Good afternoon. My name's Phil Alexander. I'm the Sales Director at MAF Oceania. I've been asked to speak this afternoon by APAL at the post-harvest seminar, basically looking at where we see the future of packhouses going from this point on. I'll give you a quick rundown on MAF Roda, a worldwide business. We have 16 subsidiaries in 11 countries with manufacturing in 11 of those countries worldwide. So just a quick diagram showing where we are based around the world. And this is our factory in Victoria, the MAF Oceania factory. And we've been manufacturing in this facility since 1976, continuously since then. During the 2000s, MAF got involved in the business, which opened our eyes up to bringing a more complete range and some world best practices into packhouse technologies. So what does this smart packhouse look like in the future? I think the grower, packer, and the equipment manufacturers are all striving for the same goal. The basis is two elements: output of consistent, high-quality product and packing efficiency with minimal labour. These are the objectives that are driving our business. And from that, we've really driven our business in two directions. One is vision and sensor development, and the other is packing automation and robotics. Let's have a look at the journey so far. In the 1970s, electronic weighing was the first introduction into a technology. In the 1980s, shape, colour started to come into effect. During the 90s, we all started working on external qualities and defect sorting with many failures and few successes. Into the 2000s, we started all working on internal sensors, near-infrared, and some more external spectral imaging with far red, infrared, and UV fluorescence. And all of us had vast improvements in our blemish capabilities during the 2000s. In the 2010s, high definition camera development really took off. Artificial intelligence started to come along, and that led to machine learning, and this is all supported by an ever increasing power in our computing. I'll just recap on where we feel we're at present. For us, our latest offering is the Global Scan 7. It has RGB and 3 infrared spectral images as standard. We can also add a UV spectral image for certain applications like in citrus or in mangoes. This is now achieved through a single lens in a camera. Previously, we would have had 4 or 5 cameras to achieve this result, but we're now able to do this through a single lens in a camera. On each lane, we would have 3 cameras analysing every piece of fruit. And we're able to now analyse so much more of a fruit than we were 10 years ago, just with the combination of computer power and continual development of better mathematics in our algorithms and the growth of machine learning as well. So this is a typical view of what we would see with a piece of fruit. To complement our vision systems, we have some near-infrared platforms which are used for internal. We have 2 sensors in this space. One is Insight, which is for sweetness and dry matter of fruit, and the other is the IDD internal defect. Many of you will be familiar with that. We've installed maybe 12 of them this year across all different types of graders. It's pretty much whatever's existed in Australia, we've been able to retrofit onto those to allow everyone to have access to these internal defect measurements, and they've become almost an industry standard for the supply chain. There's some interesting work going on with sensors, in particular transfer of information from the medical fraternity back into the fruit research. There's been some interesting work done with X-ray, soft X-ray in particular. At this stage, most X-ray is used just for looking at contamination in fruit. But actually, if we use X-ray with multiple sensors, we can actually generate a 3D image of fruit, and that can be used for looking at internal defects. Likewise, magnetic resonance, or MRI. There's some amazing information coming out of fruit using MRI. Its downfall at the moment is it's really expensive and it's very slow. But there are a couple of groups, particularly in Israel, that are continuing this work and trying to extend it into the real world of fruit sorting. These images that you can see are MRI scans across some different fruit. I see this application probably becoming part of a biosecurity inspection process where trays of fruit can be looked at, in particular with a portable MRI scanner, that type of thing. It's probably the more likely and quickest avenue for these sensors to be taken up in our industry. Another growth area is data. Now, the thing we've got to remember is that in a packing shed, it's the only place in the whole supply chain where every piece of fruit is actually inspected. So, once it's gone out through the packing shed, it's in a tray, and then we're starting to look at any inspection is only a sampling-based regime, whereas in the packing shed we can actually look at every piece of fruit. So, out of that, a lot of data can be collected, and so the analysis of all that data. So a combination of the orchard information, the pack house, the QA, the traceability systems, with some sound analysis can give you some really accurate information for your agronomy and for your post-harvest treatments. This is sort of a pool of where all this information is coming from in terms of, just an explosion of data that can be collected through the whole process. Additionally, even simple things like temperature, it's a very basic issue. Maintenance of a sound cool chain is very well known to all of us, but it's frequently ignored. I expect that there'll be more products dedicated to recording produce histories and analytics to predict impacts on shelf life. Likewise, I see that there'll be products evolved, software products that will take all of the data that's available in the packing shed and be able to analyse it with genuine statistics and give answers to the growers and to the packers. Now, the second part of the equation really is to look at the packing side of things and the robotics. So MAF's been at the forefront of complete automation solutions for about 3 decades now, and the fundamental question that's asked of me every day is how can I reduce the packing cost to the grower or the packer, and this pretty much equates to the removal of labour from the process, and that's even more evident this year with the COVID situation and the labour shortages that are associated with that. My journey down the path of looking at this level of automation started in the early 2000s, and that was starting to look at pack houses around the world and look at the best practices that we could find throughout the group. Some of these early trips we stood in pack houses with stopwatches trying to measure the efficiency of the shed and bring it always back to the number of kilograms per person per hour, so that we could compare them with other different sheds and come out with a simple figure saying how efficient the shed was in relation to others. Many of these early trips were conducted with members of the Montague family who have invited us here this afternoon. So, it was sort of the beginning of all of that journey. What became clear to achieve true efficiency was to think about it as automated a process as we could, and as close to just in time as we could, so that waste was eliminated from the whole system. For apple growers in Australia, that led to the introduction of firstly automated pre-sizes, as well as packing lines that complement them, and also some hybrid lines where we had a combination of pre-sizing and packing, such as what we've installed at Redridge. Some of our progressive thinkers in the industry were probably earlier than the 2000s. Some go way back to the 1980s, mainly working with this company when it was CVS. The Colonel being one of those, and Leone's in New South Wales. They had adopted some pre-sizing, way back, probably around 84, 85, 86, something in that area. For me, the journey started really with Integrity Fruits during the mid-2000s, and that was followed with Lenswood and Newton Brothers. And from there, we've grown to having 9 MAF pre-size systems in Australia, and about 135 of these systems worldwide. Some from very small growers down to 10 or 12,000 bins, right up to massive 120,000 bins plus. Now that we have our products sorted using the pre-size, and we know what we've got and we know what quantities we have, we can start looking further down the path of the just-in-time model, and that allows us to introduce more robotics. There's robotics now in storage with the introduction of ASRSs, as well as robotics in the packing into the trays. So with an ASRS, I'm sure you would have seen them on the tour today. Product can be stored and retrieved robotically and delivered to the packing lines. With good software, the store does not lose bins of product, and it can operate in a first in, first out environment, which has got sound post-harvest handling principles behind it. Now that we've got the fruit from the ASRS to the packing line, we can start concentrating on the robotics to actually pack the product. We have 2 products in this space. We have a line pack and a fast pack, which are packing robots, and they will actually orientate the fruit and place them onto the trays, and then we can put those trays directly into the box. We have 62 of these packing robots worldwide in various configurations. So we're now at the point that we can pack with very few people in a packing shed. So once we've got it in the box, of course, there's also automation in the palletization, and this can be done pretty much completely automatically. The other thing that is becoming a bit of a challenge for us is also starting to look at environmental packaging. So MAF's been involved in the development of sustainable packaging, in particular development of machinery for cardboard pre-pack environment. So this is some of the equipment that's starting to come through, and there is a bit of a take-up of this equipment in Australia as well. Okay, that's pretty much me. If there's any questions, I'll be available during the question and answer session. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Phil. I would now like to invite Paul Ramsden, who you met earlier, to join us. He's the Director of Solutions Architecture for Tomra Compact. Paul has over 15 years' experience in the food technology industry. He's held a range of technical, consultative and executive functions, including key management roles, product development and product strategy. Since joining Compact, Paul has developed a deep domain of industry and technical knowledge and is now recognised as one of the fruit industry's foremost experts in packhouse design and optimisation. Paul, I now hand over to you.
Hi, APAL conference attendees. My name is Paul Ramson from Tomra Compact. I'm the Director of Solutions Architecture, and I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about smart packhouses and Compact's place within them. The whole industry is under enormous pressure around the world for development. There is demand growth, there is climate change and weather events, there's consumer trends that are changing, and there's legislation and trade deals that are constantly forcing pressure. The industry responds with growth in acreage and production, varietal development, supply chain optimization, product diversification, and automation. Tomra Compact is an equipment supplier, especially in the automation sense in the packing house, and we supply turnkey packhouses to the industry. A lot of our packing equipment generates a significant amount of data that is very useful to the industry and can be used to feed back in for everyone's improved development. Why do I want to focus on data today? The reality is that change is happening rapidly, and from today for 20 years in advance, it's going to feel 1,000,000 times more advanced than what it is today. That change is happening so quickly, and the challenges with automation not being adaptable enough means that I really want to focus on data because we feel like it will persist. Fruit data, production data can be used to optimize your supply chain and can be used to make decisions and directions on what is the next big thing to be done. But all those other consumer trends, etc., are going to change the requirements of automation continuously. And the most important aspects are going to be the produce and the consumer's want and needs for them. The best thing about data is it is available now. You can have it on your existing systems, you can retrofit it into your existing platforms, you can gather it today. There's a lot of different data types at play in a packhouse. We have production and traceability level data. It's fairly common to be used. It follows batches, batch tracking, growers, and the associated information required to pay out, look after, and track the fruit and the produce that move through your packhouse. There's performance level data, the fullness, the start, stop, and the operation of a controlling of a machine, and all of the effects that that has on your OEE measures in terms of availability and performance. There's quality data, and quality data like a QC for the outgoing is really about the quality of the output. But there's a missing piece in the quality data world around the fruit quality incoming and then the resulting effect it has on the outgoing. And I want to talk more about that soon. And finally, there's some auditing data. It's typically present, it's typically on paper, and it's about your cleaning and your SOP following, your status of your latest calibrations, your status of your latest testing potentially for food safety. That's typically paper, not digitized and not tied in with the rest of the systems. All these systems tend to operate in isolation. Why do I want to focus in on fruit data? Inside the packing house, we have the unique opportunity to look at the fruit in an individual sense. When it's first picked off the tree by a picker or a harvesting setup, you are taking it down, you're looking at the fruit on an individual level, but it's an enormous amount of people and it's an enormously manual process. So there's not a lot of automation able to be deployed universally. But inside the pack house, a fruit sorter like Compact manufacturers individually looks at every piece of fruit. We get this one chance in time to take a snapshot of everything about it. We know everything about that piece of fruit, the internal quality, the external quality, the weight, the shape, the size, the firmness. These are all things that play about what it looks like. That information is absolutely valuable to go back up to the grower and talk about the product that they've manufactured, and downstream to the retail to talk about the product that they're going to be receiving and ultimately the consumer experience at the end when they buy the product off the retailer. Good data is very, very important to be manufactured during this process. And what is good data? It's really the application of secure and accessible data that meets all the legislation requirements of legislation like the GDPR. So it's around the right series of ownership and privacy being maintained. And then it's about its accessibility through a cloud-based network with the right securities. Technologies like Microsoft Azure are designed to provide. The data needs to be unique. It can't be just every piece of information that's present and it's always constant. It should be changing and variable, and it should monitor aspects that are important to the rates and throughputs or the levers that you have to adjust to the line. It needs to be of a high enough resolution. So the ability to look down at small enough pieces of data and small enough changes between them to be able to make a decision at the right timing. And most importantly, that data needs to be accurate and correct. Bad data in is going to equal bad decisions out. With good data being brought in and integrated through a good cloud universal type data collection system, you can analyze and correlate a lot of that information, visualize and report it, and ultimately display it out in a summarized and contextualized format. Contextualization means with information and scales and measures that are really appropriate to your output, what you desire to measure and look at. And it's effectively a map of what you could do, what's the next step, what's the control point that you wish to trigger. It's important to be very, very accurate and correct in the grading. On screen right now, I have a picture of some pretty terrible apples. On the left-hand side is a way of grading that you can make to make decisions between a first, second, a juice grade type apple. You can look for large brown marks and color percentages. You can look for dark marks by count or by size. You can look at shape and diameter, and you've got enough information on that left-hand side, that common grading approach, to make a decision over whether an apple is good, okay, or bad. And what you end up with as an output is those clear decisions like that column graph down the bottom. There is a bunch of good fruit in the blue, there is a bunch of maybe okay fruit in the orange, and there's some not so good fruit in the grey. On the right-hand side with smart grading, it's got all those aspects of good data that we were talking about. It's contextualized. Instead of dark marks, you're naming it to your local challenges, to your local physiology and defects. You've got russet and rot, things that you want to measure and feed back to the grower. You may not need this level of blemish grading and grading inspection to make the decision between first and second class, but you do need this level of inspection to actually feed back up and down the supply chain and make changes. You've got high quality export, domestic colors, not just red or yellow, but more about the overall shape and color. And within the grading aspects there may be some quite complex algorithms to help make the right decisions. Ultimately, on the right hand side, you have a grading map and a grading method that is set up and tailored to your region, your apples and your fruit. And what it gets from that kind of grading is, instead of a bar graph continuum, you end up with a distribution of fruit as in the below set. You can see fruit that are closer to being A grade or B grade. You can see fruit that are at the upper level of maybe low defects, low quality inducing problems, but high in blemish. So in appearance, they're not as pretty. So they're a good piece of fruit, but they're not as pretty. And with adequate control, you can actually start to choose to move that fruit in the direction. If we look at this on the left-hand side, having fruit that is graded in a common grading approach and choosing to include some of that fruit up into the first grade, you really don't have the ability to make a decision over which piece of fruit, the right piece of fruit to go up or down. Nor do you have information to feed back down to the grower or out down to the retailer about what's going on with their particular product. But on the right-hand side, with apple physiology defects being detected and then measured, you can actually make a choice for a select area of fruit to be maybe included up or taken out of that A or B grade differential. One of the key points here is that instead of changing the grading map up and down, you are instead going to change the tolerances of the control to achieve your pack out. You want to grade as perfectly as possible, and then you want to take the right fruit back into the pack, the fruit that will be adequate to meet the standards, but will still provide a good consumer experience. Now, what can this data do for you in the real world? So starting to gather data, Tomra Compact does have a data product, Tomra Insight, which is able to connect through to all of our individual pieces of equipment, our control systems, and some select third-party pieces of equipment. And we can pull that together into a large data matrix and allow you to correlate all those information together. We have active examples at play in the industry. Unfortunately, because there's so much room for development here and there's so many exciting things to focus in on, there is some commercial competitiveness and some sensitivity around sharing this information. So everything here is anonymous, and we will be talking through in the Q&A session if there's any specific questions. In terms of output from a packing line here, after the fruit has been received through from the orchard, we are using TOMRA Insight to be able to report out on defects. So here we can see of the fruit received from the orchard, what are the common problems across the bottom for the fruit that has been received through into extra fancy. We can see that we had some dark bruising coming through. This particular lot happened to be a honey crisp lot. We can see that there's bitter pit present in the extra fancy, and there will be tolerances that have been played with to meet the outgoing supplier challenges. But as far as first class fruit goes, those are areas that we'd like the grower to focus in on. On the far right hand side, the juice is even more interesting because you'll see that there is bruising, there is stem splits, there are stink bug aspects. These are all important things to feed back about your orchard, your orcharding practices that could be valuable to focus in on, and some guidance back from the packing aspect. This is grower type feedback direct from the sorting system with very high detail around what the defect is. Those defects and their incidence rates have then been controlled for going out into the final pack. We are actively working with a customer at the moment on supply chain tracking right through. So from the very orchard, we are recording and mapping the pick, the harvest location within orchards into the bin. We are tracking those bins when they are processed through the lines, and we are associating with those lines the fruit quality, the pack details into a shared database. That information is then tracked all the way through the supply chain. So the packs go through to the distribution centres on export markets, and they are then rechecked and compared to what they looked like when they left the facility, and then following on all the way through to measuring and recording and correlating the consumer level returns and retail at the far end. This kind of level of full supply chain mapping is going to be very exciting in the future for fruit science aspects, for connection between growing practices in the field, all the way through to packing practices in the pack house, and then finally the end result for the consumer at the far end. And by tracking it across an entire division of fruit and through multiple different paths to market, we can understand the effects that storage, shipping, packing practices or methods, packaging can have on that final piece of fruit. Very large club varieties are all the rage at the moment. There's a lot growing around multiple markets. And what the brand managers are starting to talk about or starting to ask about is around correlation between markets, that the fruit are the same, that the experience of eating that club variety apple matches up from one end to another, and that the origin of fruit doesn't change the eating experience of the consumer. We have customers talking to us about running grading and on the same systems in 2 different markets with an overall live view from the global brand management of the resulting aspects. This could change in the future to starting to talk about whose fruit gets exported or where orders are going to go from a global perspective and demand based on the season, based on the throughput, based on the quality of that local fruit. Looking ahead into the future, discussions that have been had or are having, there's an awful lot of opportunity for this high level, high quality fruit data to be applied back up and down the supply chain. We're really expecting it to be quite strong as advanced line control and optimization. So feeding back inside the pack house about the status of the situation and matching up to changes. Pushing back up into precision orcharding, like we were just talking about, where you can affect your growing practices and understand and maybe target particular areas of an orchard's design. Improving that orchard design, or when selecting and building new orchards, mapping what things have worked against weather data and what it has an effect on fruit quality, and actually choosing the right location and the right design and methods. Building predictive fruit models based out of recording this data and capturing what its results look like and the challenges or the changes that can be seen with fruit size or internal fruit bricks. Faster development and turnaround on a huge number of fruit science investigations. Very quite common ones will be around the internal effect on the final eating experience and what the internal kind of makeup looks like and breaks down and stores like. And then also understanding its relationship through, in this particular case, shrivel and bitter pit and storage breakdown disorders are all aspects of apples that, after being pre-sized and graded and put back through into the packing house, occur inside the storage as a loss to the fruit. Payment changes could be really happening in terms of this recording of this data and this relationship and understanding of what this data can mean towards the eating experience, and massive opportunity for payment for taste, payment for good quality fruit. It may not be as pretty on the outside, but it is still good fruit. It means that there is a whole room for diversification of that amazing apple. It just doesn't look quite as good. Grower visibility live to the fruit being packed, live through the portal data, is pretty much available today, depending on the packer and the pack house and the situation. The portals are there. It's an opportunity to start to see what the right operation and right pieces of information are to be shared. Live sales desk is also an experiment happening at the moment where live production data and live throughput is being pulled back into the operational decisions over where to send the fruit and which orders to fulfill. Retailer optimization could be occurring. So the understanding of what the incoming fruit is looking like, the total availability of incoming fruit, could really allow for optimization of both what the good fruit looks like, what the standards are that are desired for this coming market, and what the dollars per kilo or the dollars per pound are expecting to be for that particular output. So as you can see, there's a large number of opportunities to investigate in the future the application of data through the fruit industry. It's a very exciting time for Toma Compact and for the industry to see where it can go, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Paul. I would now like to invite Paul, Phil and Dick to join us on screen and introduce Andrew Mandermaker, who will moderate the panel. Andrew? Andrew is APAL's Head of Fruit Quality, Innovation and Commercialisation. He has accountability for the quality, food safety and innovation of Pink Lady apples across 13 growing countries. Andrew is also the Commercialisation Manager for new apple and pear varieties. He joined APAL in 2016 and brings 17 years of experience as a fruit technical professional across global production and supply chains of apples and pears, avocado, kiwi fruit, grapes and citrus. Andrew, I'll leave it with you.
Thanks, Justin. It looks like we've gotten everyone on board, so we'll be able to start. Before I go, I'll just remind everyone they can put their questions in through the question place that scrolls across the bottom through Slido. We've got a number of questions, so let's kick off. The questions at the top, and I'll put this onto Paul if that's okay. Do you have examples of businesses that have created and serviced new market segments or grades like super premium because of the better quality tracking and grading? I think this is probably valid for Australia in terms of driving exports. Paul, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So without naming the customers and the commodity, having really accurate grading and really being able to differentiate and create a clear differentiation between each step in the grade matrix has allowed some of our customers to pull off a super premium grade, a peeler or process grade that is good underneath but not so pretty on the outside, or identify stuff for juice that is separate to potentially, I guess, the standard juice, so maybe more for puree, etc. So yes, more segregation, more accurate grading does allow you to break out product and increase the diversification.
Yeah, I'm interested in that because I think that's a real opportunity to drive exports in terms of getting the quality that we need to demand the price that we want to compete against our domestic price. We need to be able to carve off that premium segment. So that's with more pack houses going to this technology. I think we get more opportunity to have exports because we have more of that product coming out.
Absolutely.
Second question on the list. I'll probably put this on over to Phil, if that's all right. When retrofitting defect sorters to small existing lines, are the efficiency gains comparable to new sheds?
Yeah, they pretty much are. It's a little bit subjective to the quality of the machinery that we're installing on. So long as we can gain good rotation of the fruit, then we can pretty much move to the newest and the best in terms of blemish sorting on older machines. Less concerned about the rotation if we're talking about internal defect. We're pretty happy to stick that on just about anything, to be honest.
Right. I appreciate that. One for Jay. There's a question on the list for the griefer about the griefer robotic packing. What is the quality check that the robotic packer does? Is the robotic packer producing any quality control, or is that all done at the start of the process?
You do the first quality check. You do the pre-sorting. I prefer to do the first pre-sort the fruit and then pack the fruit afterwards with the smart packer, because then you make optimum. You can do an optimum capacity with the smart packer. But we do a last check in the smart packer itself. So we have also the camera system, the same camera system as we use in the sorting machine. We have the same camera system in the smart packer. So we do a last check. So we are last quality check in the smart packer. So we are 100% sure that the quality, what's put on the tray, is 100% correct. Because you're not, perhaps the one of the defects is underneath or something like that. You cannot see it anymore. So we want to be sure that what's packed, it's 100% correct.
All right, that's good. Thank you. Moving down the list, we've got a question. Is it possible to detect insects inside the fruit using these image analysis technologies? I know we talked about some internal view with NIR and such going into the flesh. Perhaps, Paul, you could answer a question in terms of detecting insects inside.
Yeah, so I don't believe anyone in the world has quite cracked insects, but there is a lot of exciting technologies at play looking inside the fruit. Some of them Phil featured, X-ray technologies, MRI and CT kind of technologies. So I think it's going to come. I think it's on its way, and it's all about the technologies becoming affordable, the processing power increasing to run even more data through and identify it, and then ultimately the classification and use of that system to decide what you're looking for and what the markers are. You can get some aspects of insects, obviously with very, very detailed high-def external grading. You can find entry holes and marks. You may be able to take them through. But a lot of the insect damage for fruit is really virtually impossible for a person to detect, and it will be an internal technology that cracks it.
Right. I appreciate that. Questions come up. Given the investment, continuing upgrades and tech developments, what minimum throughput and operations of scale do pack houses will need to be viable? So basically, I'm reading from that. Is there a minimum size that a pack house needs before this investment starts to pay off? Perhaps Phil.
Well, it depends. Depends how far you go, to be honest. If you're just talking about the investment into blemish sorting, probably you could go down as small as you wanted. There's some fairly easy calculation to look at, how much a staff member costs you per year, and if you can justify the removal of, say, 3 or 4 people out of a packing shed, you can fairly easily look at how quickly you could recover the capital investment. If you start talking about pre-sizing and a wet pre-sizing system, you might be talking about, needing to be sort of more in the sort of 10,000 plus kind of bins per year. But we've done a few in dry pre-sizing, much smaller than that, people at a fraction of that amount.
Right, and that would be that would apply again when you're looking at retrofitting, because at a retrofit you're trying to get an efficiency gain from a relatively small investment. So I think it would be actually quite challenging to work out what your payback was in terms of labour. If you're just making one small change, you might not be able to take out more than just a couple of quality graders, for example. So it might be difficult to work out.
Yep. Sorry, Andrew.
Another question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that a little bit. The labour reduction is half of the equation, and there is actually, with retrofits and with adding additional technology to a line, the ability to increase your pack out and your premium quality pack out. That can add up to more dollars in, and therefore, versus not changing the cost base. So there's two sides to the equation, and definitely in a retrofit perspective, picking up and improving the operation of the line, the overall efficiencies, the throughputs, and increasing your grading quality, whilst a small reduction in labour of staff can actually add up to more dollars than a significant automation investment will.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
I think you're exactly right, and especially around driving that segmentation to a premium product, whether that's a premium here in the domestic market or perhaps trying to go for that export market. Looking at the questions, are there any? Oh no, we did that one. Let me have a look. Are there any farm management systems that work well both in the packing shed and the orchard, providing a complete set of data? Obviously, we've been talking about the pack shed. Is there connections and data from what's happening in the orchard setting? I think probably Dick might be able to help us on that one. I know you guys do a bit of that space.
What Grifa? Yeah, Grifa is not really doing a packhouse management system. So we only collect the data of every apple individual, and we collect this data, and the packhouse management system will do the rest of this. So I think Paul can better answer this, I think. Am I correct, Paul?
Well, I guess my answer would be somewhat along similar lines. It's, every customer, every packer, every orchard grower, every brand have their own internal data systems already present, and often aren't wishing to move along from one to another anyway. So it's all about the integrations that have got to occur, and in deploying a turnkey pack house, there is, there's always a point of integration that occurs. You do need to have some expertise in integrating other vendors and other suppliers at some point there. If we use the Montague's example, they do have an ERP system at play. They'll have their orchard management practices, and at the end of it, they will actually want to collect the data that we gather in our system, the data that the other vendors in their entire supply chain have, and then consolidate for their supply chain optimization. I wouldn't pick any one particular farm management practice over another. I think they're always going to be a custom setup. There is, every trade show that I've been to, there has been, the booths there for industry kind of vendors like IBM, who are trying to set up a blockchain type protocol that can exist right throughout the industry from the beginning to the end as a housing place for data. And it's important to, look at those massive companies and those kind of industry practices for where we can fit in and what data is applicable to pass through.
Thank you. I have one of my own questions. One of the big benefits of the investment is improving the consistency of the quality, and we've seen in the recent past in Australia that some of that investment, some of that reason for that investment, has been coming from the retailers. Maybe a question for Paul again. Do you see that going further from Europe, from America, where the retailers are setting the standards for what's required in pack houses? We've seen a little bit in Australia. Is that where we're heading further in Australia?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really interesting one, because I don't think I've ever been to a pack house that could say hand on heart this is the one standard that's packed out to, because they sell multiple grades, multiple products, multiple SKUs to multiple vendors. So it is a real challenge to balance out, and I was talking a little bit about it in my presentation around the possibilities in the future of the retailers being connected into the supply chain, into the pack house, and actually optimizing, what they're willing to pay for what the quality of the fruit that they're getting is. And if you're grading to a perfect level and you're able to, absolutely identify every single mark and blemish on a piece of fruit, you will be then able to say, well, I'll accept a certain amount of this back into this product, or I don't want any of it and I'll pay a much higher dollar per kilo to suit. I think we're heading for more diversification. There is definitely consumer products are from a brand that they want to be consistent, but there's also fruit availability and fruit demand and this global population growth, which is just going to drive the dollars per kilo up all the time and demand a cheaper product and a more premium product at each end of the whole portfolio. So it's, you're going to have more of this coming.
No, that's how I understand it. A question from the floor, if you like. The payback term is often talked about. How long does it take to return an investment? And maybe a question for all three. What typical turnaround for a green site and perhaps for a retrofit site? What turnaround in time do we typically see for a return on investment? We'll start with you, Phil.
Okay. Look, if you're talking about something in the order of what Montagues have just gone through, most people would be looking at probably somewhere in the order of 15, 20 years for justification for that sort of investment. You start dropping down to some smaller ones. I mean, I've had a few people work on sort of a 2-year turnaround for payback of some of the automation that we've put in, or retrofits, or changes to their process. So that's probably the range, from about 2 years through to about 20.
Can I say something? I think for a smart packer, I think a smart packer it's not like 10, 15 years.
No.
You can save 60-70% on labor costs. So I think for a smart packer, it's from 5. It's depending on your packaging, but it's around 5 till 7 years. You have a payback of a machine like this, an investment of this.
Yeah, I'd agree, Dick. Yeah.
I'd probably jump in here and also state, like 2 to 20. That is absolutely the range, depending on the scale of the investment and what you're actually doing. One of the hardest things about this is that there's a number of tangibles. There's the cost of your operation, there's your physical investment, there's the people running it and the cost of the incoming fruit and the cost of the packaging. There's all these tangible ones. There's also the intangibles, which is the value of your brand that you're packing through, the quality and consistency that you can achieve, the vendors association with some of those mega brands. There's obviously a number of brands packing around the world, and when you go to the supermarket, you probably have your favorite apple out there, and that's one of them.
Yeah, the brands are an interesting story, because the future of apples and to a lesser extent pears is in branded varieties, controlled club varieties, and we know at APAL that brings its own set of standards and an own set of requirements. And it wouldn't surprise me as these brands try to differentiate, that some of them will go for a more premium position to try and get themselves away from the crowd. There's a big crowd of apples coming. These varieties trying to get themselves away will bring in more requirements for higher quality and a premiumization for their premium section. So I suspect that in terms of driver, the brands will become a part of that as well. I'm sure in the Netherlands and Europe, the brands are having a big part of the discussion around where quality is going and what they expect.
Yeah, but what you see, the quality of fruits, you mean, the quality of what the retailer's asking for.
Yes.
Yes. That changed the last couple of years. It changed totally. Say for 10 years ago, you can sell in Europe still and can sell a second quality apple. Nowadays, it's totally a second quality apple is not packed anymore. So it's only quality 1. So that's changed enormously in Europe. So they ask the retailers only ask for class 1 apples.
Just a reminder for the audience, I've started to run out of questions. I started with a bunch and I've worked my way through most of them. So if you have a question, please put it through to Slido. I appreciate that. A question for the whole panel. In terms of the turnaround period, I think the obvious one is that it's driven by labour saving, but then you talk about maximising your efficiency of your crop. Do you think that the crop that we see in Australia, in terms of trying to drive our exports, which is our goal, would you agree to the idea that that can be helped by the machine, or are we just creating a second grade of class 1 that's just not going to be able to be useful in the Australian context? I suppose, Paul, you probably had the most experience in this context.
I think the commentary that you were making before is that there's opportunity for Australian export apples to grow, and population bases are growing significantly in Australia, and demand's growing there, but also outside of Australia, and there's room to be in that export game a lot more than current. So what you might see is more of the top end premium apples heading offshore, and some of those what the second grade of first class apples actually becoming the more of the domestic market. There's also heaps of science, fruit science and growing practice improvements to pull up the whole quality of apples everywhere. Like the growing practices are fantastic. The wall orchards that are happening at the moment, the pruning methods, the data tracking of what's happening in the orchards, the fruit counts. It's all improving overall. So there's going to be more and more good apples to work with as well.
And I think also for the I always take an example in New Zealand. New Zealand is export driven. What you see also, for example, the shipping time of the apples. When you ship it to Europe, it's 6 weeks on the boat. So you need to have good equipment. So you select the good, the high class apples, and for shipping to Europe. Otherwise, when you start shipping lower class apples, when they arrive in Europe, it's not, you cannot sell it anymore. So you need good equipment to do this job.
And you include maturity standards, so bricks analysis online bricks analysis in that equation for what can make it to Europe for the New Zealanders.
Yeah, I think also, bricks is not that important, but the internal quality is of course important. So you need to be sure that the apple is outside and inside they have the good quality.
Yeah, in the past, 15 years in the industry for me, I've been amazed at the amount of knowledge that's held with a lot of people, but also the amount of things that aren't known still about fruit. So there's a lot to learn around the relationships between some of the internal properties and the external properties of the fruit, and what they then look like at the end of the supply chain. It's all going to be driven by that fruit data at one end, and then maybe connecting it at the other.
Right. I have a question. It's disappeared. A question on my Slido. It's disappeared. One moment. Oh, it's disappeared. I'll have to have a look at it. The local supply chains are dominated by two retailers, and in terms of the packing technology, I'm on this point again. Is it that driven by their requirements? Because I know that they've made requirements in the past. I mean, we were hoping to have some understanding of what the future was for retailers, and are we hearing, especially in Europe, that the retailers are driving that further?
Not what they do in Australia for internal quality. It's not an issue in Europe at this moment. Not really. No. In Europe, you have different markets. You have different retailers. So every retailer has his own quality restrictions. So we find the pack houses find for every apple, they find a retailer who buys the fruit. So it's not really a problem of an issue at this moment that they ask for particular internal quality or something like that. And bricks, never hear about that retailers ask for a particular bricks level or something like that. When we talk about internal quality, they always talk about bricks, but we never sell a machine for bricks, only for internal qualities.
Right.
If I could contribute here, I think the retailers are often driven by those consumer trends, what's desirable, and the COVID-19 worldwide situation has actively driven the market towards, away from where it was heading, which was quite anti-plastic, potentially back a little bit towards more pre-pack, and we're definitely seeing trends of that. The retailers' requirements and what they want to pay for what they want to buy changing as those consumer trends and those consumer pack types go in and out of popularity.
Yeah, if I can jump in as well. Just to sort of cover off both points. I mean, it was interesting, what Dick was saying, that most of the retailers, because you have so many supermarket chains throughout Europe, do actually have some flexibility in their grade standards. So, it may be that we look more at a model where we're shipping out from Australia a more composite, still a grade 1, but with a bit more of a mixture than we actually think, because there will be the opportunity to go into different supermarket chains within Europe with vastly different quality standards compared to really the fact that we've ended up with one standard in Australia. I'm not saying that you're going to put class 2 or 3, but it might be a class 1 or 1A mixed together that allows more opportunity into more supermarkets in Europe without compromising the whole shipment. And it probably also extends back that maybe it's the role of APAL or whatever that a universal standard is set, so we don't end up with 10 different packers in this country supplying 10 different qualities of fruit into a single market, into a European market, for example. And then all of those end up going through a repack facility anyway that's setting its own standards. So it just needs to be a bit of balance put into that argument.
I have also another thing to say about exporting to Europe or to the US. What you see more and more in the past, they all pack their fruit in boxes and put the boxes on the pallet and put it in the containers and send it to Europe. This will be changed in the coming years. There will be more pre-sorted fruit, in big bins into the container, and they will pack it in Europe. So this will change also the coming years. Nowadays it's still in the box, but I think in a couple of years they will send it in big bins. First, you can ship more kgs in a container, and you can also the packaging. Mostly they repack it again in other boxes or other bags or something like that, so they can do it in Europe. So they can decide in Europe, we put it in that box, or we put it in a tray or in a punnet or something like that. So pre-sorting in Australia, packing in Europe or in the US where they ship it to.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Dick.
Yeah, we see it in some way in Australia. I know there's a lot that comes out of Chile in that way. And this technology can really help drive that, because it's producing field bins with very high quality. If you send a field bin that's at 80% pack out, it's not going to make any money when it gets there, because you'll just ship fruit that you threw away. So
sure.
Very good packing, very good pre-sizing makes that possible. And you're right, as more and more packers in Australia get onto this, I think especially to the UK, if we can get supply into the UK, I think the UK is particularly big on repacking.
That's
more and more. Yeah. Another question. Following on from Dick's comment, what happens to the remainder of the fruit, the non-class 1 in Europe? Have value-added products increased or are not picked?
Yeah, it's when you see the class 2 and a 3 will not be packed anymore. It's processing, and the small fruits, smaller fruits are mostly going into the punnet or into a bag for children or something like that. And the bigger size apples, nowadays it's not possible to. Mostly the big size apples were exported to Russia because they like to have big apples. But class 2 and class 3, no, it's not be packed anymore. Yeah, it's too costly to pack it. So only class 1 will be packed. So the growers have to grow the fruits very, very good. To make money of the apples.
Thanks,
no
Dick. And,
2 and 3. Yeah.
as I understand, that's all the time we've got, unfortunately, for questions. And it's, I appreciate the audience participation in providing me questions there. It was very good. And I thank you to the panelists for your help on that. If you have any more questions for the panelists, you can always contact them directly. I appreciate that. So a big thank you to Phil, to Paul, and to Dick for your time today and for your presentations. They were very interesting, and we appreciate it muchly. I would now like to play a short message from our second sponsor today, Campbell Chemicals. Give us a video on their EcoFog technology.
Thank you to Andrew and the panel for that conversation. Before we wrap up today's session, could I please implore everyone to click on the polling button on your screen and fill out a survey for us. Your feedback and input is really important to us so that we can continue to improve the offers that we have through these seminars. In a few days, you'll be able to find a recording of today's presentations on the APAL website. As we wrap up, once again, I'd like to thank our sponsors for supporting this post-harvest event: Port Innovation, Tomra Compact, and Campbell Chemicals. That wraps up the session. So stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at one of our upcoming webinars or APAL activities in 2021. Thank you.